Sactown Sports.
Welcome back. Joining us right now at his new time, 7 a.m. Pacific. That's 10 a.m. Florida time, where
he's been working all morning. You know that.
He has. Dave Richard headquarters in Southern Florida. As he joins us right now from CBS Sports. David, it's Dave and Jason. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. I am still a little shocked at how poorly the Commanders ended up playing yesterday against Green Bay. But I think the takeaway is that the Packers are going to be kryptonite for everybody pretty much when it comes to fantasy. I mean, look, we got great games from Zach Ertz and Deebo Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Jaden Daniels back into a decent stat line, but it's not what we were hoping for from him. Certainly the rushing yards weren't there. Pour one out for Austin Eckler, but just like the way the game started for Washington was not at all what I was expecting. And it was almost disappointing. And I can't help but wonder if they didn't like really study the Packers as much as they should have after what Green Bay did to Detroit last week.
Is it tougher to study them with, I mean, I guess they added Micah Parsons, but also just whatever you were studying, it's harder now.
Right.
You know,
apparently so. Like here I am questioning Cliff Kingsbury, but Cliff Kingsbury definitely knows the game way, way better than I ever will. But at the same time, you'd think that they've got this hot, speedy young running back. Give him the ball a little bit. You've got Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel. First quarter, they didn't have the ball that much in the first quarter. They didn't give any of those guys an opportunity to do anything. No targets for them, no carries for them. Just seemed very strange how they started that game. And, you know, all's well that ends well for most of those guys. But it was just weird. Like, how do you not, you know, you're going to get pressured a ton. How do you not get Jaden Daniels out of the pocket a little bit more? How do you not run more horizontal routes early on in the game? Just very, very strange what's happening to offenses that play against Green Bay so far this year.
Well, and the other part about the game, which is, you know, a huge part of the sport, is just a violent sport by nature, but the injuries in the game to Eckler, to Reed for the Packers, like just, you know, I hate to, that didn't look good for Eckler, did it?
No, it looks like it's one of those injuries that he's going to miss significant time for. I'm hoping that I'm wrong on that, but it'll open the door for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt to get more carries. I think it could also open the door for there to be 3 running backs in the mix for Washington. They've had Chris Rodriguez inactive for the first 2 weeks. I would imagine that they'll have him play a little bit more now. And Jeremy McNichols might end up being their third down guy, their passing downs guy.
That was my question, really, honestly. And we talked earlier about how fantasy sports has changed. And it feels, you know, we all feel dirty talking about a guy, and it sounds like, at least preliminary reports, is that it's Eckler's Achilles, and we'll see him maybe next year. Right. And acknowledging, you know, our thoughts with him and his career and his family, you have fantasy football questions that are associated with that. So with that disclaimer, obviously Krosky-Merritt, you know, owners are excited about those prospects. But my question for you is going to be for those trolling the waiver wire or free agents. Merritt's already gone. Merritt was drafted.
For sure.
Would you grab McNichols or would you grab Rodriguez?
I would be reluctant to grab either one of them.
Okay.
Let's just see how the weekend plays out. If there's really nobody that stands out, I might veer toward Rodriguez. I think he's a little bit more explosive than McNichols, but neither of these guys are going to be like saviors for your fantasy team.
It kind of makes that Brian Robinson trade too. Now, obviously,
right, sure.
Golly,
yeah. You know, Dave, I think about all. You know, we've talked to you the last couple of weeks, but you've gone to practices, joint practices, all the research, all the studying you've done, and week 1 happens. I know you're not one to panic or flinch, but there's plenty of fantasy owners that do. Anything in week 1 that shocked you, that has, I don't know, maybe changed your mind or opinion on something even slightly, or is it just way, way, way too early?
I think mostly it's way too early. I was pleasantly surprised with what we saw from Travis Etienne in Jacksonville. I mean, he played so well in week 1. It was against Carolina. But just the fact that he was able to just do so well that the Jaguars traded Tank Bigsby like immediately following the game. I thought that was a pleasant surprise. I thought it was a little surprising that Javonte Williams got as much work as he did in Dallas. Remember, the Cowboys in that first game didn't even make Jadon Blue active. That's their rookie running back. They're telling us he's not ready necessarily to be a factor. And so Javonte got plenty of work, scored a couple of touchdowns, could end up being a decent fantasy running back this week as well. Other guys that I might be like, I was really disappointed in the Lions offense, but again, they played against Green Bay. I'm just not sure if this is going to be what the Lions offense is. I think they bounce back big this week, for example. So if you were nervous about starting Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't know why you would be nervous about starting Jahmyr Gibbs or Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those guys are must starts, but I still feel good about Jameson Williams. I still feel good about David Montgomery. I still feel really good about Jared Goff. I think he can end up being a top 10 type of fantasy quarterback this week.
Well, that gets us to our first couple of questions. Goff, Knicks, or Kyler Murray?
I like Goff the best of those three. I'm a little worried about just how much work Kyler Murray is going to have to do because he's taking on that Carolina defense. I think Arizona will be able to run on them. Kyler can have an okay game, but he's not a top 12 quarterback for me. I don't see the same type of huge upside that other people do.
Let's see. The other one is Travis Hunter or Marvin Mims.
Wow. You've got to be desperate, huh? If you're starting those guys.
You know what? It was a tough I mean, this guy had a tough draft.
Yeah.
It was a 12-man league, he says.
Or she.
Yeah. And they, that's that or David Njoku.
Can you see, or could you ask that guy or girl if Cedric Tillman is still on the waiver wire? Because I might feel better about starting him than both of those players.
All right. I'm texting him right now. Is Cedric Tillman still on the waiver wire?
What? Are you going to get a quick response?
No, already got a response. No, Tillman's been picked
Tillman's
up.
already rostered. Okay.
Yeah.
Who you have to go with.
Yeah. You say that again? Sorry.
Travis Hunter.
Okay.
But you were just asking
tell
for
that
them.
fine person who would never do anything like take up time on a radio show
right
to ask questions about his or her fantasy team.
Right.
That Travis Hunter's the better play.
And then did
that person skip a few rounds of draft?
That maybe the person might have gotten locked out of part of their draft because they were at their daughter's USC football game and missed.
There's another person like that?
Isn't it? It's one of my daughter's bandmate.
Oh,
dads
okay. That makes sense now.
Also, you mentioned Goff, so I do have to follow up on that. I know you've seen the stat where it's like under Ben Johnson and Sean Payton, he's whatever. But with the other three coordinators I think it's 0-19-1.
Yeah.
Which blows me away, dude. But is that one of those stats that you just kind of have to push aside?
Of course.
Yeah.
Remember, a lot of those games, the 0-19-1, all those losses came with inferior coaching. Mm-hmm. So I'm absolutely sure that the Lions will win some games this year with John Morton as his offensive coordinator.
Okay.
Dave, we always end up at some point asking you about the Niners. They're also in the news here. Look, McCaffrey ended up playing and got a ton of touches, but the injury front is no Kittle, no Purdy.
And maybe no Trent Williams, Jason.
Oh, my goodness. So what's the impact on, well, a must start normally is McCaffrey, but just everyone else, Mac Jones, any other receiver, tight end? What are you looking at Niners-wise?
Other than McCaffrey, I would downgrade expectations across the board. That includes Ricky Pearsall. Yes, he's the number one receiver, but yes, he's going to see a lot of double coverage from the Saints. And if Mac Jones, first of all, it's Mac Jones, a quarterback, so let's not try and sugarcoat that and say that he's a great passer. I know it's a great offense. I'll easily grant you that. But if it's Mac Jones without Trent Williams protecting the blind side, I would be nervous about people other than McCaffrey catching passes in that game. So we could see 10 targets for Ricky Pearsall. How many of them are going to be on target? Maybe 6, maybe 7, maybe 7. And so he could have a decent game. I would consider him more of a high-end flex than anything else.
Does Pinheiro, I know he's new to the team, does he go up or is he even worth a pickup?
I wouldn't trust it.
Okay.
You can find another kicker.
Don't ask me kicker questions.
No. Why are you starting on a kicker in an offense that might not be productive?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It figures to be kind of a low-scoring game between the Saints and the 49ers anyway. And in those types of games, maybe a guy can nail 2 field goals. But I'd rather take my chances with a kicker. Jake Bates might be out there in a bunch of leagues. You can go and pick him up. Tyler Loop for the Ravens, guy who probably didn't get drafted in a lot of leagues, absolutely would start him over Pinheiro.
actual listener questions here from the 209.
What do you mean actual listener?
Other than,
the one you
the
had
guy
already.
that texted
Yeah.
me. Drake, London, DJ Moore, or David Montgomery. And the guy adds, I know London is the obvious answer, but I'm just worried about his shoulder injury.
You can be as worried as you want. If he's going to play, you start him. There's just way more potential for him to have a big game compared to the other two.
Roma Dunze or Jameson Williams?
Jameson Williams.
And then Etienne or Williams and flex. Javante, I think.
Yeah.
Etienne. Okay.
Go.
Back to you.
All right. How about we hit you with the Niners? Just the Raiders. Genty got a touchdown, not huge yardage, but he did get a touchdown. Geno Smith was good. What are the plays there this week for the Raiders in that Monday night game?
Well, certainly assuming that Brock Bowers is fine. He's a must start. And I still think Genty you view as a high-end number 2 type of fantasy running back. And Jacoby Myers just continues to be one of the most underrated receivers, not just in fantasy, but in the National Football League as well. I've got him ranked as a middle of the pack flex type of wide receiver, but you could get away with starting him for sure as a number 2 receiver in full PPR. I wouldn't start Geno, even though I love 2 of his pass catchers. I do think it's going to be a tough matchup for him against the Chargers. I think the Chargers might be a little more balanced this week than they were last week. They could run the ball a little bit more. I do think that the matchup is favorable for Amari and Hampton, who started strong for the Chargers against the Chiefs, but then Kansas City really put the clamps down, and Hampton did not finish with a good stat line whatsoever. I think he can bounce back. I think the Chargers DST might be a decent low-end play.
We all know week ones bring overreactions. Generally, people are spending a ton of money on the waiver wire, a lot of times for guys that they'll end up never using. But I always like to ask you on the opposite end, if you are a fantasy owner of somebody that maybe had a really good or impressive week one, are there any names that stick out to you going, you know what, that value is really good right now. I don't trust it for the next 17 weeks. If somebody's giving you a good offer, you might want to move them.
Sure. So these are more like sell high candidates.
That's exactly right.
About,
yeah.
And guys that you want to try and move off your team after a big game. We had a whole list on CBS Sports earlier in the week. One of the names that was on there for me, and when I say sell high, I don't mean this guy stinks, get him off your team. I mean, you're trying to turn a guy that was drafted like around 90th overall into a player that was drafted maybe 30th overall.
That's
I think you could probably get away with that with Travis Etienne.
Okay.
This is one single example of a player who had a great week one. It's probably going to end up being his best game of the year. Well, he didn't score in the game, I don't think so. Like, there's definitely a chance that he could have a better game fantasy-wise. He could have a 2-touchdown game, but it came against Carolina, and I feel like that's going to be the layup matchup for all running backs. So start James Conner this week. Etienne's schedule does get rougher as the year goes on. We've seen him as the lead back before for the Jaguars. 1 year he was awesome. 1 year he was okay. 1 year, last year, he got banged up and really didn't do much of anything to help fantasy managers. So if you can turn him into something huge, I would strongly consider that. I think that that's something that could end up really helping your squad if you can make that happen. Another player, let me give you one more.
Yeah. Sure.
Zay Flowers had a monster week one.
Yeah.
It was with crazy high target volume in a game where Lamar Jackson really didn't throw very much. And Lamar never throws a ton to begin with. And that's one of the arguments against Zay Flowers. But I can't help but feel like Zay Flowers is going to have a lot of games where you're going to start him and you're going to feel disappointed with what you get. It doesn't necessarily mean that this week is going to be one of those games, but the track record of him against Cleveland isn't particularly good. The Browns just shut down Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in the same game in week one. Makes me a little bit nervous to trust Zay Flowers as a must-start moving forward. So if you can sell high on him, that's another player that was drafted much higher than 90th overall. But if you can turn him into somebody who kind of disappointed in week one, who was taken with the top 30 pick, why wouldn't you? That's a great opportunity for you to just make your team better. And you already got credit for what Zay Flowers did in week one. Might as well go ahead and turn that into somebody who's certainly could be better long-term for your team. Certainly somebody who could be more consistent for your fantasy team.
Dave, we got another one in here. What are they asking? Travion Henderson or Jordan Mason?
I like Henderson better. And really the analysis is this deep. He's taking on Miami. I mean, the Dolphins defense, I still think they've got a good pass rush. The stats don't say that because Daniel Jones was getting the ball out so quick last week. But A, he's taking on the Dolphins, and I just don't know if they've got the linebackers that can match up with him. And B, Mike Vrabel talked all week about how he wants to run the football more. In fact, it was like the very first thing, his first reaction to what happened in week 1 to the Patriots was, well, we need to run the ball more. And he's right. And if you watch the running backs play, Ramondre Stevenson is okay. Travion Henderson's awesome. And so getting the ball in his hands should be a priority for the Patriots this week. I'd be shocked if they don't do more to get the ball in his hands. I've got him as a low-end number 2 running back this week.
Speaking of the Dolphins, it was so bad for them, but people would have Tua. People would start Tua. People would start Achane. People would start Tyreek Hill. They were so bad. Is there a bounce back offensively, at least for some of those guys?
I think there's a chance for that against the Patriots because the Patriots, their pass rush is okay. Their secondary, if they don't have Christian Gonzalez, I think that could be a liability. And I think the Dolphins are going to try to at least throw downfield, and hopefully Tua can make that happen a couple of times to Tyreek Hill. He missed them on 2 deep throws last week. Hopefully they connect this week. It's the saving grace for Tyreek, who people who have him in like this is one of the biggest, I don't want to say overreactions, but it's a reaction to week 1 is what happened in that game against Indianapolis, because the Colts secondary isn't particularly great. Mm-hmm. It was Tua messing things up for Tyreek. And if that continues to happen, Tyreek's value is going to slide until he's traded. And I think that that's always a possibility. If you've got Tyreek on your team, I think you have no choice but to start him, but it's with the expectations of him being a number 2 wide receiver, not somebody that you say, all right, this is the week he bounces back and he goes off. There's no guarantee of that. There's the potential for that because the matchup's favorable. He's at home. Tua should be able to bounce back at least a little bit. But boy, a team that had offensive line problems to begin with lost 2 starters. And you know the Patriots are going to go after Tua quite a bit. So they're going to blitz him a lot. Tua's going to have to continue to get the ball out. Hopefully that means good things for Tyreek Hill, both in the short area and downfield.
Let's talk about another team that pumped a lot of players to, and in many cases over the top when it came to a championship last year. There's a lot of nervous Detroit Lion owners this week. You had them playing the Packers and their new defense with Micah Parsons just coming in. But you also, it's the first game without, as we mentioned before, Ben Johnson. You've got Jared Goff, who actually was 31 of 39. But yeah, Jared Goff, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, who actually had a good game, Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's a lot of top flight or near top flight fantasy football players on that team. Should we talked about moving off of players when their value is high or acquiring when low. If you're a Lions player owner, should you be nervous right now, or do you say, calm the waters, it'll be fine?
They played Green Bay. Jared Goff's kryptonite for his entire career has been pass rush pressure.
Yeah.
And he's not going to play Green Bay again until much later in the year. I've got the schedule in front of me. It's going to be week 13.
Okay.
So on Thanksgiving Day, sit Jared. All right, unless the Packers' second or pass rush goes through some changes for the worse. I don't think you're going to feel good about starting Jared Goff. But the Bears are a different defense. They don't have the same type of pass rush. They're going to play more man coverage. I think that'll keep things interesting for the wide receivers in Detroit. I think St. Brown and certainly Jameson Williams can beat that type of coverage. So as long as they can just contain that pass rush for Chicago, and I think they can, then Jared Goff should have a big game. And so I would expect bounce backs for everybody in Detroit.
Okay. Dave, as far as quarterbacks go for this week, is there someone rated higher on your list that someone out there may have? They go, I wasn't thinking of starting them, but Dave has them in their top 10, where normally they're, 15, 18 type guy.
So the 2 guys that are top 12 that I think people might be surprised by, 3 if you want to include Jared Goff. So Goff would be one of them. Let's say 3. The other 2 are Trevor Lawrence taking on Cincinnati. I am not a believer that the Cincinnati Bengals defense is anywhere near as good as the Browns made them look last week. I think the Browns were just trying to get the ball out as fast as they possibly could. And then J.J. McCarthy impressed me, not in the whole game, obviously, against Chicago on Monday, but in the fourth quarter especially, really caught fire. I don't think it's a one-time thing. I like the offensive line he's playing behind. I love the offense that he's in. I love his play caller and Kevin O'Connell. We've seen O'Connell work magic with his quarterbacks as recently as last year. Sam Darnold, I mean, he was just outstanding for most of the season. And I think J.J. McCarthy can build on what happened at the end of that game. So I kind of like the upside for J.J. McCarthy against Atlanta.
David, where can people see, hear you, all that fun stuff as they get ready for week 2 to either continue rolling or stop the bleeding?
We just finished our second start sit episode of the week on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, search for Fantasy Football Today, and you will find all of our content there. We're talking about trade videos, ad drop videos, and of course, starts or sits, which is really important this time of the week. We will help you make good roster decisions. We will help you win this week. You can do it by going to youtube.com, searching for Fantasy Football Today. And it's all free, Dave. It's free. You don't have to pay anything to like or subscribe to the videos.
You know what? I forgot to ask you, by the way, real quick. I want to sneak a last one in. Aaron Rodgers, Steelers. Did that tell you anything?
Yeah, I think that he's actually like a smart, serviceable quarterback for that offense.
Okay.
I don't think that was a one-time thing either. But he was one of many quarterbacks last week that just their goal was to get the ball out fast.
Right.
And he did that, and it worked really well. His receivers were in the right place, and it was enough to help them get over the hump against the Jets.
And then same game, by the way, Breece Hall. There was a lot of questions about Breece Hall coming into the season, the guy who was at or near the number 1 pick 2 years ago. Do you, if you're a Breece Hall owner, are you starting to feel a little better now?
No, I'm starting to feel a lot better now.
Okay.
And, you know, we talked a lot about the offensive line play in Miami. There's other teams where it's obviously an issue. There is no such issue with the Jets, which is saying something because they lost one of their best linemen right before the season started. I think they ride that offensive line for as long as they possibly can. And I think it'll help Breece Hall. This is one of the teams that I was very wrong about based on 1 week. And I think they do keep it going. I think there's a sneaky team that might be able to upset the Bills this week. I think that they're going to have a chance to really put up some solid numbers, certainly for fantasy, but maybe even some points as well. Fields looked great. Garrett Wilson looked great. And you said it, Breece Hall really looked outstanding. I think he's got to give a lot of credit to that offensive line.
That's Dave Richard. Check him out and check out all the ways he and his team will help you prepare for fantasy football, not just over the weekend, but throughout the week as well. Appreciate you, brother. We'll talk to you in a week. Have a great week, too.
You got it. Good luck in your weeks or in your leagues this week.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. That's Dave Richard joining us each and every Thursday. Now or Friday at I was going to say 10 a.m. That's his time.
Yeah.
As we go to break,